Hey, what's up, fellow ruiners of cinema? How you doing today? I'm the real Manos, and I wanted to talk to you about the MCU, and specifically Phase 4, although I guess this can roll over into Phase 5. And essentially, what the thing is everybody's talking online, and of course, that always is good news, about how Phase 4 has been really underwhelming, and each film is the worst film ever made, and it's destroying cinema, blah, blah, blah. So, they've been saying things like that for years in the MCU, but it's not really caught on until recently. It does feel like the general statement you hear now about the MCU is not what an overwhelming success it is. It's like, hey, it's not as good as it used to be. So I decided to take a look at this with some ideas of my own of what's going on. And first off, before we continue, let's see, my comic book Red Knight is right here, and you can purchase it online in print and digital over at manospublishing.com. And issue 7 is about to be released very soon. As soon as I send out the copies to the backers right here, I'll let you know when that's available. So, hey, back to this MCU thing that all the kids are talking about. And essentially, the thing is, everybody knows it's now terrible and everything's awful. Because, I mean, after all, Shang-Chi is terrible. Well, wait, no, Shang-Chi is pretty good. The second Black Panther film. No, wait, actually, that was pretty good, too. The Disney Plus shows, like WandaVision or Miss Marvel, which, oh, wait, no, those are pretty good. And I really love She-Hulk. The Spider-Man movie. Oh, yeah, the Spider-Man movie. Wait, no, really, everyone loved that, and that made a lot of money. So, okay, there's been some big wins in Phase 4, and also on Disney Plus with, like I mentioned, WandaVision, Loki were big hits. Miss Marvel apparently didn't get the numbers, but it was a critical hit. And also, Werewolf by Night, by the way, is a critical hit. If you haven't seen it, if you skipped it, definitely check it out. It's on Disney Plus. I even saw people reviewing that, giving it very strong positive reviews that hate the MCU. I've literally seen like some horror critics who don't care about superheroes or the Marvel universe, but really, really took to it because they enjoyed the spirit of it and thought it was a legit good short film. Okay, so what's the problem? Why is everyone agreeing that Phase 4 and maybe Phase 5 is terrible and weak and it's losing its stride? Okay, so let's go on to a few things where I feel like people are kind of getting this feeling. And I actually decided to put together my issues with Phase 4, and there's 4 problems. And here's what I'm thinking. All right, number 1 is COVID. Hey, remember COVID? That gigantic pandemic we had worldwide that was ruining everything and killing millions of people? Yeah, I don't care what your politics is. That happened. And even if you think it was fake or some weird conspiracy, it disrupted lives. If you think it was real or not, who cares what you think? It disrupted lives. These are facts. And that disrupted filming, and that disrupted some of the quality you see in some of the films, which is why Marvel did get a little bit too chummy with green screening, and which is why some of the films had a little bit more fakiness to them than they had previously. And they had used green screen like everybody else, but it did seem to be becoming more the norm. I mean, there are scenes in some of their films that took place on the city street, and it's just green screen. They didn't have to do those scenes. But when you think about it, like, some of these were shot during the pandemic, so yeah, they felt the necessary. And also it became cheaper, so it became more tempting to use. And speaking of cheaper, let's go to problem number 2, and that is streaming. And streaming has affected the entire culture of cinema, and it's related to this horrible one-two punch of COVID and streaming, because we were all stuck at home. We started watching streaming a little bit more strongly, and we got out of the habit of going to the movies. And a lot of us who were like iffy about the whole thing about going to the movies really fell off completely. Like, oh, this was their chance. This was their jumping off point. And a lot of people who were still cool about going to the movies became less excited to do so. And one of the few things people were still going to see during this time was Marvel movies, frankly. And this has definitely like caused Disney and Marvel to put out more content, quote unquote. So therefore, the idea was putting out more MCU stuff that filled in the gaps of other films and led into other films. And oh boy, gee, they you got to watch this film, this series. I've never seen before a film franchise that you also had to go and watch TV shows connected to it and then go to the next movie. So that, I think, leads into problem number 3, and that is Marvel's own success. And it's become such a huge juggernaut. This can't be stressed enough. What the MCU has done is mind-blowing, and the fact that they were able to create a umbrella franchise of mini franchises. And that's why Hollywood was so excited about doing their own cinematic universes, because this was this was printing money, and this was a huge array of films coming out that connected to each other. So it's like, hey, you don't care about Guardians of the Galaxy, you've never heard of them, but hey, it's part of this universe I'm invested in. Let's go see it. And then you go, oh, well, that one was pretty good. How about Captain Marvel and blah, 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 and Black Panther? So with COVID and streaming becoming more of an issue, that's when success kind of started to become, a hindrance. And actually Marvel became kind of a victim of its own success, because Disney loves making money. So it's like, okay, we're not going to just do a couple of films a year. Now we're going to do like 3 or 4 films a year, and in between those films is going to be a mini series on Disney Plus, which you can subscribe and see the movies and see the shows and then get excited and go see the movies. And that gets tiring, and it does kind of create this sameness. Now, it's a different story when you got 2 films a year, therefore you have enough time to kind of rest and like watch other things and think about other things. But when you have almost like a monthly commitment to this, and these films are so well organized and they have this branding that's very familiar, it starts to bring up across this kind of sameness, and it gets less exciting. If everyone's super, then no one is, if I may quote a Disney supervillain. So these are problems. The good news is these are problems that I think can be corrected over time. Matter of fact, I've seen over the last 10 years the MCU and Kevin Feige and company course correct when they feel like they're going too far into making some mistakes. They do go back and forth, and they're able to figure this out. We've seen it a couple times already. And even in She-Hulk, the last episode does kind of acknowledge on-screen problems with the MCU, which makes you think, okay, maybe they're listening and they hear and they're thinking about it too. Of course, COVID is getting further and further in our rear view mirror. Streaming is a problem that affects everybody, and I assume that Disney and the people at MCU are kind of thinking about how to commit to this. As a matter of fact, during one of the things I've seen in the last year is Kevin Feige and Bob Iger of Disney both specifically mention that maybe it was a mistake to put out so much material, and maybe that means we might get a slowdown. Matter of fact, I think I haven't heard a reason why the Marvels was pushed back until I think it's November. I think it's because um, they recognized that that was too soon because we had like what Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, then the Guardians film, and then the Secret Empire, and then Marvels. Marvels was supposed to come right after Secret Empire. After all three of those films, that was back to back to back. And I think, excuse me, I'm living in city, have to wait for the giant motorcycles to ride by. I think someone at the wheel noticed like, hey, this is way too much on top of each other. Let's give people a little space. Also, they had the competition with Barbie, of course, that they probably foresaw being kind of an issue. So that was kind of wise, and that makes you think, okay, maybe they're thinking. I think the biggest problem that faces not just Phase 4, Phase 5, and the MCU in large, I'm not sure if they can fix this problem. I'm sure as a fan if I have a suggestion for it. And that's what I like to call the T2 problem. What is the T2 problem, you ask? Well, it's a phrase I made up. And it's actually something I've been thinking about for years when I watch a franchise go on past the expiration date. And essentially, I got this idea because of the Terminator franchise. And it struggled along for years, and people would argue which film was the worst and, killed the franchise and stuff like that. And my argument is what killed the franchise was Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the second one, the most successful one, the most beloved one. I think that film killed the franchise because the original Terminator was a moderate hit, and it became larger and larger on VHS, home video, and HBO, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was building a big rep. So by the time it came out, and I believe '91, with the new special effects that they were bringing in, and Arnold's like now peak clout at the box office, they really blew up the cinema. I gotta say, I remember that movie coming out. I remember seeing it in theaters. People ate that shit up, and it ends the Skynet problem. It ends the story in number 2. That's it. And I do remember fans trying to figure out ways to keep it going, and of course Hollywood, wanting to make money, has tried to keep it going. And you have seen with each progressing film a decline and just diminishing returns each time until finally the most recent film came out, where you could see them trying, okay, we'll do this. No, okay, that didn't work. We'll do this. Okay, let's bring back this actor. Nope, let's do this. How about now we go into the future? No, that didn't work. Let's do this. Over and over again, trying to course correct when the story was over. And we have all decided on that. Like, there was no more Terminator. You would have, I really do think, like, if they want to do any more, they will have to remake. They will have to reboot because the story's over. The end. Like, people don't want any more of the story. And I think that's an issue with the MCU because Endgame was such a huge, satisfactory conclusion to the Infinity Saga, and it also concludes the stories of Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, almost Thor. You can make an argument that his story concludes in Love and Thunder, and Natasha Romanoff. All their stories end in that film. And yeah, Natasha gets a film after Endgame, but it's kind of an epilogue and a continuation with a new character taking over the mantle. And Love and Thunder, as I mentioned, is kind of an epilogue for Thor's story. But, Tony dies. Oh, spoilers. And Steve Rogers gets his happy ending. And the film is also called Endgame. That really does bring across the point to a lot of film fans that maybe this is over. So when the MCU continues, that's a little bit of a sticking point for a lot of film fans. Like, they had invested this much into this cinematic universe, and they're done. And of course, you and I, as comic book fans, know that we get like 2 end games a summer, for DC and Marvel, and they continue to move on. But film fans don't really kind of get that. That's not how that stuff works for them. So I think that's the biggest hurdle if I had to make one guess, because I think the first 3 problems are workable problems. It's just the T2 problem, I think, is an issue. And I think with X-Men coming down the line and Fantastic Four, and the remaining sequels to the films that have already been made, I think it all kind of plays forth. I think if they play their cards right, I think they're able to continue into Phase 5 and into Infinity. But this is a problem that they really need to think about. And I would recommend, and I know they're watching because I'm so important, but I would recommend paying attention to not just the flavor of the month. Like, oh, what's the Dungeons and Dragons film done? Okay, we'll copy that. No, don't copy that. Take a look at long-lasting film franchises, and that's what the MCU is. I would recommend looking at films like the Godzilla series or the James Bond series, which have been around for like 50 years and shit like that. And they've had their series of starts and stops where people swore up and down like, oh, there's no more James Bond movies after this. Oh, there's no more Godzilla films after this. This is over. And then they come back and then they kind of figure out, where to go from there. I would definitely recommend, kind of following suit with that. Like, I think the MCU has kind of joined that small club of franchises in film. So, I would recommend don't panic. That's the best I can do. And also to fans. But hey, what do you think? Leave me a comment below and click like, the notification bell for all things Manos. You can find me everywhere, kind of, sort of. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, blah, 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 Threads, and Blue Sky. And you can hit me up on Patreon, and $1 a month you can support the channel and my publishing empire, Manos Publishing. So I think that's it for now, and I will click out of here. Push the button, Lindsay.